Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for sending me in your fabulous questions. I just love answering them. I mean, your questions that you send me in really help other couples in the lead up to their wedding day because they may have the same questions as you. So please keep sending them in to me. Send them in to me on my Instagram page, which is Jenny McCarthy 8. So let's start off with question number 1. Jenny, what do we do with our gifts and decor items at the end of the night? Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say with the gifts, and generally people give a gift in a card, which is money. And then other people do bring gifts to a wedding. So you need to, I suppose, ask somebody that you absolutely trust 100 million percent to look after your gifts on the wedding day. It's generally the best man. I have seen one of the mothers do it too. And that's kind of taking the cards off people and minding them. And that's a big job because if you've got 150 people coming to your wedding, I mean, that could be sort of 70 cards, and gifts. So it's a big, big job to ask somebody to do. So just make sure it's somebody that you trust 100 million percent. And then just in terms of the gifts, then find out where is the best place to keep those cards, because mum or best man or bridesmaid or whoever it is that you choose doesn't really want to be walking around with them all day long. So they want to put them into a very safe place. So you need to make sure that that place they're putting them into is very safe. I have heard stories over the years, not too many, but I have heard them. So bear this in mind, where bedrooms have been broken into and safes have been opened and gifts have been taken out of safes. So thankfully, now I haven't heard that in a long time, but that has happened. So just make sure wherever they are leaving them is a very, very, very safe place. Decor items at the end of the night. Like, you need to check with the wedding venue about this, because generally if it's a wedding venue or a hotel that has weddings there a lot and they might have a wedding every day, they may not have the space within the room that you had your dinner in. So they may have other space to put your decor in. So you need to discuss that with your wedding venue. There generally is an area where you can put your wedding decor. And a lot of the time, if you have had the room, filled with flowers, or, if you had fairy lights put up behind the top table or whatever it is, like a dance floor lights in it, generally those companies come back and they dismantle whatever they've put up and they take it away. But if it's decor that you've provided, you need to just double check that with your hotel. Jenny, would you suggest closing the bar at any stage during the day? Not at the drinks reception. I think closing the bar, even if it's just for a brief period of time, it actually helps the guests move from the drinks reception down to where they're having their main meal. So if the bar is still open at the drinks reception and they're trying to ring the bell, it's very difficult to get your guests away from the bar to go down to where they're having their meal. So I do think it's a good idea to possibly say to, whoever you're dealing with at your wedding venue, if you're ringing the bell for dinner at 5:30, can you close the bar at 5:20 and just say to guests, this bar is now closed, but the bar in the other room where you're having your meal is going to be open when you get down there. Yeah. And it also kind of, it also helps the wedding venue then get the guests to where they need to be. And it just works for, I suppose, the flow of the day as well. Should we have hair and makeup done at the same place? So yes, definitely. Whether that's at a hotel, whether you're at home, whether it's a salon. Now, a lot of the time, the hair and the makeup is not done in a salon. I have had to go to hairdressers before where, the bride's hair has been done, but it only ever happens every now and again. You want your morning to be as stress-free as possible. You want to be able to enjoy having your hair and makeup done. And I think if you're moving in between two places, if you're going to a salon to get your hair done, you're coming back to the house to get your makeup done, it's just, it's not great for the flow. It's just lovely to have the hair and the makeup people that you've hired to be in the same place. So generally, like if it's in somebody's house, the hair person could be in the same room as the makeup person, or they could be in two separate rooms, just depending on the space that they have. I know that the makeup artist is going to definitely want to use an area where the light is the nicest. It's generally beside a window, with some diffused light coming through the window. There's nothing worse, I suppose, for them if they're in front of a window and the sun is shining straight through the window and kind of, you don't want that. But just if there's a curtain on the window, it's just generally where the best light is. The hair person, the hairstylist then, doesn't need that much natural light a lot of the time. So their natural light isn't as important to them as the makeup artist's natural light, but they still would like to be in an area where they have plug sockets. This is very important, because they will have hair dryers, they'll have straighteners, they'll have all sorts of apparatuses for your hair, and they definitely need access to plug sockets. And I would always suggest, just in case they don't bring it with them, and generally most professional hairstylists would, have an extension lead if possible there for them as well. And just make sure that the area that you're giving them is comfortable for them to work in. And if it's comfortable for them to work in, you're going to feel amazing. Just another little tip just about hair and makeup. Generally, a makeup artist likes to do makeup with somebody who is sitting on a taller seat. So if they're sitting on a seat that's quite low, like a kitchen chair that you'd sit at the table, that's not great because they're bending down to do your makeup. So generally they'd just like to be at the same level as you. So if you're on a bar stool or one of those stools that you put around your kitchen countertop, that's an ideal height for them. That's just a little tip. Generally, if we're in a hotel, we'll send down for a bar stool, and sometimes the makeup artist brings one with her, but just maybe bear those two little things in mind. So yes, they really should be in the same location, in my opinion. How do we determine if we should be at our drinks reception? Now listen, lads, every single person that I speak to who is getting married wants to be at their drinks reception. I wanted to be at my drinks reception. Yes, I wanted to have my photographs taken because they're very, very important. But I also wanted to be in there, meeting and greeting the people that I have invited to my wedding. So you don't have to be there if you don't want to. That's totally up to you. But yes, definitely, I think you need to go to your drinks reception at some stage to say hello to everybody. So that you're not saying hello to everybody on the dance floor later on. Because when you're brought down to have your meal, you're all sitting at different tables, and the chances of getting around to talk to them can happen, but you have to do it in between the courses. Whereas if you've more or less said hello to everybody at your drinks reception, you don't have to leave your top table to go round and say hello to everybody. So look, that's just up to you, but every single one of my couples want to be at their drinks reception. Hope that answered your question. Where should I get dressed? There's where should you get dressed? Generally, I would say to the bride, do you mind if I sort of have a little look around so that I can see where the nicest light is? Light is everything. It really is everything. And especially when you're taking photos, and it's all about kind of where that natural light is hitting you. You don't want to be sort of in a dark part of the house or a dark part of the hotel getting dressed, because you want some natural light coming in. And I love working with the light. I love to kind of maybe put my bride in front of a window and get some nice silhouette shots. But I also love when the light is falling on top of her as she's getting into her wedding dress. Now, obviously, when the dress is up over the appropriate areas, natural light is lovely. So really, where should you get dressed? Where is the hair and makeup happening? Stay away from that room because you definitely don't want to be rubbing off any makeup that was kind of on a table or, and there will be. Generally what makeup artists do when they come along to your home or to a hotel, they sort of lay out their makeup, and generally there's sort of like a towel underneath it so that they're not ruining anything, but just stay away from that area with your wedding dress. Is it somewhere you could put your dress on as well? So if you have your dress sort of laid out somewhere for the photographer, is that an area that you think would work well for your photographer? Is there natural daylight? Is there a window in the room? Sometimes, the dress for me is hanging up in the attic, and there's very little space in an attic. You might have sort of the middle of the attic has a higher ceiling, and then either side of the attic doesn't, because it's sort of, you've a slant on either side. So I try not to dress my bride in an attic, and generally the light there isn't amazing. Will you have transportation to your ceremony? So this is another thing about getting dressed and thinking about your dress. God, I was talking to somebody yesterday about Lady Diana's dress. Just let's talk about this for a second. And when she got out of the carriage that she was in, to walk up the steps, her dress was an absolute mass of creases. Now, that's down to a couple of factors. Obviously, the material was just, it creases very easily. And there was an awful lot of that material as well. So it was probably bunched up together in the carriage. I always say to my brides, when you're sitting into the car to go to the church, if you've got quite a bit of material, sort of bring the material out to one side, get the girls to help you. Put your bum in, so pull the dress to one side, put your bum in, and then fold it over your knee so that you're not sitting on all of that material and, creating creases on your bum and all the way down the train for when you get out of the car. You don't want that at all. If you choose to get ready at your ceremony space, wherever that's happening, like those same issues apply. How's the lighting, the aesthetic of the room? Is there even a room to get ready in? And if so, is it big enough to hold you all comfortably? So have a think about all of those elements, because they really are important when it comes to getting into your wedding gown. Because this is the day. Like, you've spent so many times in your bridal designer trying it on and getting all those fittings done. But today's the day it has to be right. So just make sure wherever you're putting your dress on is the right space. Do we need to use ushers at our ceremony? So if your ceremony is going to be at a church, I would say definitely, yes, have ushers. So your ushers are different to your best man and your groomsmen. So your ushers would be there to sort of tell people where to sit if you want to sit them on one side or the other. And it's also for them to hand out the booklets to people walking in the door, if you've got mass booklets. So I think ushers are incredibly useful. And they can also actually help round people up afterwards for photographs. If you give them the jobs and tell them what you need them to do, they can be so useful, and they can be so helpful to a photographer on the day of a wedding when the photographer has all of these names on a piece of paper and they don't know the faces to the names. So the ushers are really useful. So I would definitely say ushers are very helpful. And they could be like nephews, or somebody special to you that you would have loved to have had in the bridal party, but you couldn't because, the bridal party's full at this stage. But you're giving them a very, very important job to do. When should we do our family photos? So I always suggest, and well, this is what I do, I would always do my family photos first. So we get back, from the ceremony to the hotel or to the wedding venue. And I would always tell family members, bridal parties, girls and guys, don't take your luggage out of the boot of your car. Just come straight in and let's do the photos straight away. So, and this is where we're going to do the photos. And I'd always have a plan A and a plan B. So my plan A is for outside. And if the weather is dry, this is where we're going to do them. And if the weather is not with us on the day, if it's raining, we're going to do them inside, and this is where we're going to do them. So you have to have a plan for your family photos. And everybody needs to know where they need to be to get those family photos taken. So, while your wedding day is one of the most incredible days in your life, you need to be organised for it to flow well. So when should we do the family photos? I'd say do them straight away. And then what you're doing then is you're letting your family have their photos taken, and then the day is theirs. They can go and check in, and they can totally be present at the drinks reception, and they're not going to be worried about having to be taken back outside or into another room for photos. So that's when I do them. I would try and do family first, and then I move on to my bridal party photographs, and then I do my couple last, because up to then, and I've said this here before, my couple are surrounded by people up to then. They've seen people outside the church. We'll talk about that in a minute. They've been beside their family. They've been beside their bridal party. And now it's just time for them to be on their own and go, hello, husband. Hello, wife. It's just a lovely time, and I get more, I suppose, I get more romance from the photos if I do them in that order rather than if I did them first. That's what I think. should we provide meals for our vendors on the day of? Oh my God. Thank you, Siobhan, for sending me in that question. I really want to talk about this. So, yes. And it's not that your suppliers are being mean or scabby. Like, I'm just going to talk about it from my point of view. So, say, for example, I'm doing a wedding and I'm with my bride at 10 o'clock that morning. And my couple have decided, oh, do you know, we're going to keep Jenny now until after the first dance. So I'm there at 10 o'clock and you mightn't do your first dance until 9:45, 10 p.m. that night. That's 12 hours. Now, what I always do, otherwise I'd be collapsing on the ground. And Amy comes with me as well. She is my right arm at weddings. I always make a lunch, or Amy will make a lunch. We take it in turns. And we know our plan for the day. So if it's a ceremony in a church, we've got a bit of a drive to the wedding venue. It might be only a 15-minute drive. We'll have something that's actually easy to eat in the car, especially for me because I'm driving. So it could be, like a sandwich, some bit of bread, but I make a lunch for myself that will sort of keep me going. And I might have a protein bar in the morning, but there's a big gap then from the time the ceremony is over until you're announced into the room that evening for your meal. And in a lot of cases, it's a wedding venue. So there may not be a bar, but, you can't expect somebody that you have hired at 10 o'clock that morning and they're not going home till 10 o'clock that night. You can't expect them not to have food later on. So 100%, I would say yes, provide meals for those people who are around. Now, there's another story that I have. I was doing a wedding years ago up in Powerscourt House, not Powerscourt Hotel, the house up where the gardens are. And again, I had been hired from whatever time to whatever time. And I was there at 9 o'clock, I think. It was very late when everybody got their main course because speeches had run on and they were before the meal. And the band came along and there were quite a few of them. And now the band don't go on until whatever time, until you do your first dance. They're setting up, I suppose, a little bit before that. And they were all demanding food. And I just couldn't get over that. Now, look, I suppose if it was me, I don't know if this is just how I would be. If I was a part of a band and I had to be on site at 8 o'clock, I'd have my bloody dinner before I leave the house. And I'm working from 8 o'clock then, maybe until 1 o'clock. So that's a few hours. I'd bring a sandwich or a protein, but I wouldn't expect my dinner to be handed to me. But Jesus, these guys were like, where's the food? So I suppose you just have to, should we provide meals for our wedding vendors on the day? Siobhan, I definitely think if they're with you for 12 hours, yes, 100%. Your videographer, your photographer, and by the way, if your band has worked, I often see this. So they might be at the drinks reception and they may be doing the music at the drinks reception and they may be continuing on to do the band that night. Yeah, feed them, but not somebody who's like rocking up at 8:30. Have your dinner before you leave the house. That's just my opinion. God, I'm going to have all the bands given out to me now, but that's just my opinion. Jenny, do we have to have wedding favours? Look, these are not, not everybody does wedding favours, but I am seeing a huge amount of them. And I think if there's room in your budget at all, it's nice to leave a small little thank you for people on the table. So then when they come in and they find their seat and they sit down, they're like, oh my God, look at what they've done, or, and what are they? What are those favours? Like, I often see like favours that you can eat, like little macaroons. I often see little shot bottles, like little bit of vodka or a little whiskey bottle. I see lotto tickets, scratch cards. And I also see, which is lovely, Jenny McCarthy, I do wedding candles, but I also do like little mini wedding candle favours. So they're flying out at the moment. And what I do with those, by the way, might as well just give myself a plug. We personalise them to the couple. So we'd have their name on the lid with the wedding date. And it's just a lovely little thing to give the guests, and they absolutely love them. So look, if it's in your budget, absolutely, it's a nice thing to do. Jenny, do we really need a wedding planner or do we need a wedding coordinator? So this is an interesting question. I would always say that you are going to have a wedding coordinator at your hotel or your wedding venue. So, I was talking to Tankerstown about this recently. And every couple is assigned somebody who's going to look after their wedding day. And that's the person that you will be liaising with at the wedding venue or at the hotel. and they will coordinate your wedding day. Now, I have worked at so many weddings where there's a wedding planner brought in. Olivia Buckley, if you're listening, you are amazing. And, for people with the budget who can organise a wedding planner, absolutely go for it. So a wedding planner will come in and they will organise everything around your wedding day. And they're separate to the wedding venue, that they work for themselves. But generally, your wedding coordinator at your wedding venue will organise your wedding day. But if you have a lot of money, go for the wedding planner. Are place cards a must? Yeah, I have my own opinion on this. I like them. I suppose, you're going to have your table plan outside the room, and you'll see everybody kind of queuing up to look at the table. What table are we at? What number are we at? And then sometimes the couple call the tables, after something that's important to them. Actually, for our wedding, we had little kind of records that we had made up, and we called each one of them like a nightclub name, because Martin was a DJ for years and years and years, and he worked in lots of different nightclubs around Dublin, and I did too. So Lily's Bordello and Faces nightclub were two of our tables, but sometimes they're just like table numbers. So then you have your guests and they know where to go. They're going to table number 3. And sometimes couples just let them sit then at the table wherever they want. I think it's important if you've got anybody with food allergies, like somebody who's a celiac. It's important for the hotel to know where they're sitting. If you've got somebody who's allergic to peanuts, it's really important for the hotel to know where they're sitting. So I feel it's a great idea to have place cards on your tables. And you know something, an awful lot of the hotels will make them up for you if you ask them. And it's not that expensive to go and get them made, or you can make them yourself. So if it's not in your budget to go and get them made, you can actually buy those little cards, and you can, you can do something on the computer, or you could get somebody who has nice handwriting. But I actually think it's a good idea to have place cards. When should the RSVP reply card be due? Now listen, this is from Paul. Paul, good luck with that. Honestly, it's recommended your RSVP date to be about 4 weeks before the wedding. Because an awful lot of the wedding venues or hotels will want to know about 30 days in advance, or thereabouts, what the meal count is. So they'll want to know how many people are going to be eating. So you need to really be getting back your RSVP cards within a month of your wedding. But people are devils. They're so bad at sending back RSVP cards. So I think what you need to do then is kind of, every couple is the same. You need to get on to people going, are you coming or are you not? So it's 4 weeks in advance, because that's when your wedding venue is going to want to know. Who should give the toasts? So we spoke about this recently, so I'll just fly through this. Generally, traditionally, the father of the bride starts off. And then it goes from the father of the bride to the father of the groom. And then it goes to the groom, and then it goes to the best man. And that's traditionally. I see so many other people talking now. The other day I had the bride talking, and I had her mother talking, and her father spoke. The best man spoke, and the father of the bride and the groom spoke. So there was a lot of talking, but those speeches went on for 58 minutes, which is way too long. The hotel were losing the plot, and it was a really, really, really nice hotel. And I can tell you that the beef was overdone when it came out. So that's what you have to consider when you're having your speeches before your meal. Do not go on for a full hour. There's absolutely no need to do it. If mum wants to get up, if bride wants to get up, keep it short and sweet. Dad does not have to go up and talk about his daughter and give her a whole CV from the time she was like a child until now. Everyone knows what she did during her life. And I know he's very proud of her. A couple of nice stories are good, but you don't need to go on for 20 minutes, Dad. Okay. So this is my last question, and this is the one I'm going to finish on. Is it still common to do a receiving line? You mean the meet and greet line at the end of the church when the bride and groom walk out? It's so funny, because when I do a Zoom call with my couples 2 weeks before their wedding date, I do it because I want to talk to them about the wedding day. I want to talk to them about their photos, obviously, and who's going to be in all of the photos and where we're going to do them and what time they're going to do them. we probably spent about 10 minutes talking about photos. The meeting is about an hour long. The other 50 minutes is all about the logistics of the day, how it's going to work. And timings is a big thing for me. And timings on the morning are very, very important, because if you're late for the church, you're late for the church, and you're eating into your own drinks reception, because they're still going to ring the bell for dinner at the same time later on. So don't be late for the church, by the way. But the meet and greet line. So the couple walk down the aisle, and they stand at the end of the aisle at the church doors, or at the ceremony doors, and all of the guests pile out the same door, and they do a meet and greet with them. That can go on for 45 minutes, and I think it's the biggest waste of time ever. Now, I have mums at home, and possibly dads, especially mums, going, "No, Jenny, it's such bad manners not to do it." It's not. Honestly, like, now, and especially after COVID, the meet and greet line, an awful lot of people are not doing it anymore. And I have said, I'm in the wedding industry 20 years, and I have always said, why are we doing this when we could be using this time that we're wasting at the door of the church, at the door of the ceremony? We could be using it back at the drinks reception, where the couple can go in and enjoy chatting to their guests there, instead of, standing at the end of the church or the end of the ceremony and kissing and hugging everybody coming out the door. So it's really just about time. And the way to get around it is to say to the celebrant, the priest, whoever's doing your ceremony, just to mention to everybody before they give the final goodbye, like sign of peace or whatever it is, listen, Jenny and Martin, I'm going to use me and Martin, are going to go off now and have their photographs taken, because they really want to spend some time with you all at the drinks reception. So they're not going to do a meet and greet at the end of the ceremony. They'll see you back at the hotel. So that's my opinion on a meet and greet line. And actually, when I did a little bit of research into it, because I wanted to answer this for everyone, I get asked about it so often. I'm kind of famous for, Jenny doesn't like doing the meet and greet. It's not that I don't like doing it. When it does happen, and some people go, "No, Jenny, we want to do it." And I go, "That's no problem. It's your day. I'll do whatever you want me to do." There's some nice photographs that I get from a meet and greet line. And then the couple don't feel like they have to go around and meet everybody at the drinks reception. But I did a little bit of research on it, and I am coming up with the same thing, that it's just not done as much anymore. And especially after COVID, people are just going back to their hotel and they're getting straight into their photos. That's the end of the meet and greet line. I'm exhausted now. So thank you for sending me in your questions. And see you back here again next week.